Just wait for it to connect. Okay, yep, I think that's up for recording now. Jane, if you mind telling me a little bit about when you were first diagnosed and what your sort of thoughts were, really.
Well, it took about, I didn't know anything about Parkinson's. It took about 6 months to actually be diagnosed in the first place, which was very difficult. I went to the doctors because I wasn't swinging my arm. I didn't think anything, I thought I'd got a trapped nerve. But then obviously then I was sent to a neurologist, which I thought was a bit odd for a trapped nerve, and it went from there really. I actually found out before the official diagnosis, which was it was very awful actually, because I went for an MRI scan, and the lady was holding a clipboard, and the sort of paper was over the back of it, and I read what it said and what they expected, and that was just devastating, absolutely devastating. It really was. It was just sort of what, you know. Because all I knew, the only person I come across with it at the time, but it had been years ago, lived next door to my grandparents, and he was just sort of in a wheelchair, couldn't move, couldn't speak or anything. And it's sort of, oh, sugar. you know.
And how old were you at that time, if you don't mind me asking?
I was 41.
So considered young, really, if you're thinking of the condition.
Absolutely right, yes. I mean, it's about, 16 years ago now, yeah.
Yeah. And how, if you're looking at day-to-day life now, sort of what are the major impact of that on you?
I mean, because the first few years, they call it like a honeymoon period, and that it isn't too bad, you know, you go out and about and whatever. I mean, I started off very much not telling people. The only person who knew was my husband for several years, which is my way of dealing with it. I still think it was right for me, but you know, it was some time before I told other people. And I started to tell, I mean, nowadays, I mean, you have to tell people because it is more obvious that there's not something not quite right, you know, the additional movements or whatever. I'm still fairly active, so it's not, but where I find it is when the drugs start to wear off, and then suddenly I go from being fairly active to hopeless. I just can't move. It's just it can be quite distressing sometimes. The muscle aches, the muscle goes very tight, and it's hard to explain how it feels. It's just really uncomfortable. It's not pain as such, but it's unbearable sort of discomfort. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, obviously we know each other via conductive education. Not many people have heard that conductive education can help people with Parkinson's. How did you find out about it? And
the Parkinson's nurse, she had mentioned it a couple of times, but I didn't really think anything of it. The chap I work for, he tells me he was actually involved. He was a journalist at the time. He was involved with bringing it to the UK. Apparently, I don't know, in the early days. And he sort of for 2 or 3 years he was pushing me to apply to come. And a couple of times I'd looked at it on the site and thought, nah, I don't need that. But one of the major blocking things actually for me was because I didn't want to mix with other people or see other people with the condition. But then I got to the stage where it was 3 or 4 years ago that I was starting to be more aware of my frailties. And so I thought, well, anything that can help, frankly, I'll give it a go. So that's how I came to apply. It was really him pushing me. He once said, "I'm going to I'll sack you if you don't apply." Yeah, no. So I mean, that's, you know, it was great. It was made it really did.
Yeah. And does it help you now in your daily life? Have you found that it's been something that's useful?
It is, yes. You have to. It's all thinking about, for example, how you hold yourself, you know, sort of your posture and everything like that. And I find some valuable for that, and also strategies for, you know, if I do freeze or whatever, right, how do I go about sort of doing it? I mean, it's not, you know, when it's chemical, it's not always easy, but I think it's made a hell of a difference, certainly for me, yeah.
And do you think generally there's enough information on Parkinson's for general public?
Probably not, but I think the problem is that if you show people with the full horror of when things are bad, it's actually very upsetting for those that actually have the problem. That's it. I think that's, and of course, if you don't show that, people just think, oh, I think that a lot of the campaigns have been, we can live with this, and it hasn't got, I can't remember the phrases, but they haven't, I've got Parkinson's, it hasn't got me. It's all very positive, and let's face it, you have to have a positive mindset when you've got something like this, which thankfully I have most of the time. But it's just, to the public, if you didn't know anything about it, why would you give money? They're quite jolly, those folks.
Yes, yeah, you're right. It's a hard one to get the balance between the reality of living with it and the positivity.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for your insights there, because hopefully we can use this to raise some awareness of the condition and get people to understand, if you like, the both sides of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So great. Thank you very much.